They thought they had it all. My husband of 15 years was handing me divorce papers while his girlfriend, our 25-year-old housekeeper, packed my bags. My husband had just swindled me off my multi-million-dollar business, my mansion, my entire life. But what they didn't know was the card I had under my sleeve. You see, dear friends, when you build something from nothing, you learn to keep a few cards up your sleeve. And the ace I'd been hiding, it was about to destroy everything they'd stolen from me. So grab your sweet tea and pull up a chair, friends, because this is a story about how a woman with nothing but a secret and a suitcase built an empire that would make her enemies beg for mercy. Dear friend, let me give you a background to this story so you understand it better. Let me also remind you to subscribe if you like interesting stories like this. I am Sophia Montgomery, 40-year-old, co-founder and creative force behind Glamour Home, the fastest-growing home decor company in the Southeast. I was the vision, the designer, the heart. My husband, David, he handled the numbers. Or at least that's what I thought. We'd built Glamour Home from a single Etsy shop into a $20 million business. I designed every product, from our signature scented candles to our best-selling luxury throw pillows. David managed the finances and operations, or so I believed. What I didn't know was that David was already having an affair with our housekeeper. The cracks started small. Maria, our housekeeper, started working later hours. She needs the extra money, David would say. Then she started coming to company events. She's family, he'd insist. Meanwhile, David was working later and later at the office. Big deals in the works, sweetheart, he'd tell me, kissing my forehead while his eyes darted away. The first real red flag should have been when Maria showed up wearing a $5,000 necklace I'd seen in David's briefcase. A gift from my boyfriend, she'd said with a smug little smile. I actually felt sorry for her, thinking some poor man was being taken for a ride. Oh, my friend, the joke was on me. The big confrontation happened on our 15th wedding anniversary. I'd planned a surprise dinner at our favorite restaurant. I arrived early to find David and Maria holding hands across the table, feeding each other dessert like characters in some cheap romance novel. The conversation that followed was like something from a nightmare. Sophia, we're in love, David said, as if this was reasonable news to deliver. Since the company retreat in Miami, Maria added, stroking his arm possessively. But the real gut punch came next. And since we're being honest, David continued, not meeting my eyes, the board meeting yesterday voted you out, effective immediately. I laughed, I actually laughed. Voted me out? David, I'm the majority shareholder, I'm the face of the brand. That's the thing, sweetheart, he said, and the condescension in his voice made me physically ill. When we incorporated, you signed everything 50-50, and I've been slowly buying up other shares. I now control 52%. I felt the room tilt, all those late nights, all those investor meetings. He hadn't been growing our business, he'd been stealing it from me. The next week was a blur of legal documents and moving boxes. David filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. He claimed I'd become emotionally distant and obsessed with work. Meanwhile, Maria moved her things into my walk-in closet while I was still packing my grandmother's china. The final humiliation came when I received a cease and desist letter from my own company's lawyers. I was forbidden from using the Glamour Home name, from contacting any of our manufacturers, from interfering with business operations. David had even trademarked my signature design, the Montgomery Rose, pattern I'd created for our best-selling bedding collection. I moved into my cousin Tina's spare bedroom with 2 suitcases and a broken heart. I'd lost my husband, my business, my home, and my life's work, all to a man who'd rather count money than create beauty, and a girl young enough to be his daughter. For a week, I did nothing but cry and watch reality TV. I was a shell of the woman I'd been. But then, something snapped. I was watching Maria's Instagram story. I know, don't judge me, and she was showing off her new office at Glamour Home, my office. And she was holding up our flagship product, the Smart Scent candle system I'd invented. The system that had 6 patented features. The system that had a fatal flaw. I discovered 6 months earlier. A flaw I'd been secretly working to fix. An improvement so crucial it would make the entire existing product line obsolete. A secret I'd kept even from David. I stood up from that sagging couch in Tina's basement, and for the first time in months, I smiled. "Tina," I said to my cousin, my voice steady for the first time since the divorce papers. "How do you feel about turning your garage into a laboratory?" The war wasn't over, dear friend. It had just begun. Dear friend, let me tell you about hitting rock bottom. It's not pretty. It smells like mothballs and defeat in your cousin's basement. But here's the secret they don't tell you. When you're at the bottom, there's nowhere to go but up. And yes, I was ready to soar. Tina's garage was a disaster zone of Christmas decorations, old exercise equipment, and my shattered dreams. But it was also free, and it was mine. The secret I'd been keeping from David? Our smart scent system had a fatal flaw in its wax compound. Over time, the scent distribution became uneven. The first half of the candle would be strong, the second half weak. Customers were starting to notice, and David had also been cutting corners on quality control to boost profits. For 6 months, I'd been working on a new soy-based wax blend that would maintain consistent scent throw for the entire candle's life. I'd been testing it in secret, perfecting the formula while David was too busy with his spreadsheets and his mistress to notice. Now, with nothing but time and rage, I got to work. The first months were brutal. I used my last $10,000 in personal savings to buy materials. I converted Tina's old kitchen table into a workbench. I learned to do everything myself, from mixing wax batches to building a website. I called my new company Phoenix Flame, rising from the ashes of my old life. My signature product, the Eternal Scent Candle System. It used my secret wax blend and had one additional feature David knew nothing about: a reusable, recyclable vessel that customers could return for refills. Sustainable, cost-effective, and utterly brilliant if I do say so myself. Meanwhile, David and Maria were running my old company into the ground. They'd fired my design team to cut costs. They'd switched to cheaper materials. They were trading on the reputation I'd built while systematically destroying everything that made glamour homes special. I knew this because my former assistant, bless her heart, was feeding me information. Jessica had wanted to quit the day after I was forced out, but I told her not to quit, and she'd been my eyes and ears ever since. "They're losing the Nordstrom account," she told me one afternoon. "The new product line is garbage, and customers are complaining." This was my opening. I reached out to every contact I had in the industry. Buyers who knew me, manufacturers who respected my work, designers who'd been loyal to my vision. I showed them my Eternal Scent prototype. I demonstrated the consistent burn. I explained the sustainable refill program. The head buyer from Nordstrom, a woman I'd worked with for years, looked at my prototype and smiled. "This is the Sophia I remember," she said. "When can you deliver?" But starting a company from scratch takes money, real money, and I was running out. That's when I decided to pay a visit to someone I should have spoken to months earlier: David's first wife, Rebecca. Rebecca and I had never been close, but we shared a common enemy. David had left her for me 20 years earlier and taken half of her family business in the divorce. When I showed up on her doorstep, she looked at my tired face and my determined eyes and sighed. "Come in, Sophia. I've been expecting you." We talked for hours. I showed her my business plan. I showed her the flaws in David's current operation. I showed her how we could build something better together. "David always underestimated the women in his life," Rebecca said, a slow smile spreading across her face. "How much do you need?" With Rebecca's investment, Phoenix Flame went from a garage operation to a real business. We rented a small warehouse. We hired Jessica and 2 of my former designers. We started production. Our launch was perfectly timed. Just as Glamour Home's quality issues were becoming public knowledge, we debuted Eternal Scent with a marketing campaign that subtly highlighted all the ways we were better. David's response was predictable. He sent more cease and desist letters. He threatened lawsuits. He told anyone who would listen that I'd stolen his intellectual property. But he'd made one crucial mistake. I'd never patented the original wax formula. I'd only patented specific features. My new blend was completely different, and I'd been smart enough to file the patents in my name only. The battle lines were drawn. David had the money and the established brand. I had the better product and nothing left to lose. And I had one more card to play a secret I'd discovered while going through old company files. A secret that would change everything. Dear friend, this is where the story gets good. Real good. While David was playing businessman with his child bride, I was doing my homework. And what I found in those old company files would be the rope he used to hang himself. It started with an email chain I found while backing up my old work computer. David had been using company funds for personal expenses for years, vacations with Maria, her luxury car payments, even her mother's mortgage. But that was small potatoes compared to what I found next. Buried in the financial records was a pattern of payments to a shell company in the Cayman Islands. At first, I thought it was tax evasion. But as I dug deeper, with the help of a forensic accountant Rebecca recommended, we uncovered the truth. David had been embezzling from our own company. For years. He'd been skimming profits and hiding them offshore, then reporting lower earnings to avoid paying bonuses to our employees and full dividends to me as a shareholder. The amount, $3.2 million. I went to the SEC, then I went to the IRS, then I went to my lawyer. The day the federal agents walked into Glamour Home headquarters was the same day Phoenix Flame landed our biggest account, a nationwide chain that had been Glamour Home's flagship client for a decade. The fallout was immediate and brutal. David was arrested at his desk. Maria, who'd been listed as an officer in some of the shell companies, was charged as an accomplice. Glamour Home's stock plummeted. The board, finally seeing the truth, voted David out and offered me my old position back. I laughed when they called. I have my own company to run, I told them. But the best was yet to come. With David facing federal charges and Glamour Home on the verge of bankruptcy, I made my move. I offered to buy what was left of my old company for pennies on the dollar. The day the sale was finalized, I walked back into my old office for the first time in 2 years. Maria's cheap perfume still hung in the air, but her tacky decorations were gone. David's ego wall of awards had been taken down. I stood at the window, looking out at the city that had watched my rise, my fall, and my resurrection. I'd done it. I'd taken back everything they'd stolen from me. But the sweetest moment came later that week. David, out on bail and desperate for money, asked to meet me. He looked old and tired, the arrogance completely gone from his eyes. "Sophia," he begged, "please, drop the civil suit. I can't pay you what you're asking. I've lost everything." I looked at the man I'd loved for 15 years, the man who'd thrown me away for a younger model and stolen my life's work. "David," I said calmly, "do you remember what you told me when I found you with Maria? You said I was replaceable. You said the business would be fine without me." He flinched. I was wrong. "Yes," I said, gathering my things. "You were, and now you get to live with that mistake." I left him there, a broken man in a coffee shop. I had a company to rebuild. 2 companies, actually. Today, Phoenix Flame is worth 3 times what Glamour Home was at its peak. We've expanded into home fragrances, cleaning products, and even a line of sustainable home decor. I merged the remains of Glamour Home into Phoenix Flame and kept the best employees. David served 18 months in federal prison for embezzlement and tax evasion. Maria broke up with him while he was inside and wrote a tell-all book that nobody read. Last I heard, he's living in a studio apartment and working as a bookkeeper for a car dealership. Dear friend, always remember, when someone tries to bury you, what they don't realize is that they're just planting a seed. And from that seed, an empire can grow.